The voice sliced through the quiet diner like a knife through silence. "Look at me when I'm talking to you, boy." Officer Victor Harlan's hand shot out, too fast to react. The backhand connected with Darius Hale's cheek so hard the sound cracked like a gunshot. The teenager's head whipped sideways, his face slamming against the cold window glass. The badge on Harlan's chest caught the light as he leaned in closer, his breath heavy with arrogance and rage. "Next time you laugh when I walk in," Harlan hissed, his fist twisting into Darius's collar, yanking him upright for every witness to see. "I'll make sure you remember who runs this town." The heat from the strike pulsed across Darius's cheek with each heartbeat, but he stayed still, silent, unbroken. Officer Harlan had no idea he had just assaulted the one boy in town whose father outranked every badge in the building. The sun slanted through the diner windows that afternoon, casting long golden shadows across the black and white checkered floor. Darius Hale slid into the worn leather booth with his friends Malik and Andre, their backpacks stuffed beneath the table. The after-school crowd had thinned out, leaving only a handful of regulars nursing coffee at the counter. "Man, you should have seen Coach Wilson's face when Andre hit that three-pointer at the buzzer," Malik said, grinning as he grabbed a laminated menu from behind the napkin dispenser. Darius laughed, a bright, natural sound that filled the small space. "For real, though, I thought his eyes were going to pop right out of his head." The bell above the door chimed. Officer Victor Harlan stomped inside, his boots heavy against the linoleum. His face was flushed red, jaw clenched so tight the muscles in his neck stood out like cords. He had just come from a traffic stop that had not gone his way, and everyone in the diner could see the anger rolling off him in waves. Behind the counter, Eleanor Briggs looked up from wiping down the coffee station. Her smile faded when she saw that look on Harlan's face. She had seen it before. Nothing good ever followed. The boys' laughter echoed again as Andre mimicked their basketball coach's shocked expression, his arms flailing dramatically. Darius wiped tears from his eyes, completely unaware that Harlan's head had snapped toward their booth, his eyes narrowing with dangerous intent. "Something funny?" Harlan's voice cut through the diner's atmosphere like a blade through butter. He took 3 long strides toward their table, his hand resting deliberately on his belt, fingers drumming near his service weapon. Darius's smile faltered instantly. "No, sir, we were just—" The crack of flesh meeting flesh exploded through the space. Darius's head snapped to the side, his left cheek blazing red where Harlan's hand had struck him. The force knocked him hard against the window, and his water glass toppled, spilling across the table in a spreading pool. Silence dropped like a heavy curtain. Andre froze mid-breath, his face going pale. Malik's hands clenched into fists under the table, but fear kept him paralyzed. At the counter, coffee cups stopped halfway to shocked mouths. An elderly couple near the window sat frozen, forks suspended over their plates. "Not so funny now, is it, boy?" Harlan's voice dripped with satisfaction. His lips curled into an ugly smirk as he straightened his uniform shirt, taking his time, making sure everyone saw his dominance. Behind the counter, Eleanor's hands trembled as she reached for her phone. But when she spoke, her voice came out steady and clear. "That's assault, Officer Harlan, on a minor in front of witnesses." Harlan turned slowly, his smirk widening into something cruel. "Witnesses?" He let the word hang in the air. "I don't see any witnesses. Do you?" His gaze swept the diner methodically. Customers quickly looked away, suddenly fascinated by their coffee cups or cell phones. An older man near the door grabbed his check and hurried out, the bell chiming behind him. But Eleanor stood straighter, her chin lifting with quiet defiance. "Maybe not," she said, pointing to a small black dome mounted in the corner, its red light blinking steadily. "But that new security system? She saw everything. HD quality. Upload straight to the cloud. Real nice picture. Something flickered in Harlan's eyes. Uncertainty. Maybe even fear. But it vanished quickly behind his practiced arrogance. "We'll see about that," he said, then turned back to Darius, who sat perfectly still, one hand pressed to his burning cheek. "Stay in line, boy. Next time might not be just a slap." The bell chimed again as Harlan pushed through the door, leaving behind a diner full of held breath and trembling hands. Darius sat motionless. A thin line of blood appeared at the corner of his mouth. Andre grabbed napkins from the dispenser, dabbing uselessly at the spilled water while shooting worried glances at his friend. "I'm calling your father," Eleanor said, already dialing, her free hand gripping the counter so tight her knuckles went white. "This ends today." The other customers began whispering among themselves, their voices a low hum of shock and guilt. "Did you see that? Someone should do something. But what can anyone do? He's a cop." Malik slid closer to Darius, his voice low and angry. "You okay, man? That was messed up. That was so messed up." Darius nodded slightly but didn't speak. His eyes stayed fixed on the table, watching water drip slowly onto the floor, each drop marking time. The red handprint on his face stood out stark against his brown skin, a visible brand of injustice. Eleanor hurried over with an ice pack wrapped in a clean towel. "Here, honey, hold this on it." She turned to check her security monitor behind the counter, confirming what she already knew. The footage was crystal clear. Harlan's approach, the unprovoked slap, the verbal threat, everything. Minutes crawled by like hours. The ice pack began to melt, cold water running down Darius's wrist. Andre and Malik kept shooting glances at the door, jumping slightly every time the bell chimed as other customers left, whispering promises to tell their parents what they had witnessed. When the bell rang again, Darius didn't look up, but he felt the shift in the air, the way the remaining customers went silent, the way even the traffic noise outside seemed to fade. Heavy, measured footsteps crossed the floor. Elias Hale stood in the entrance, his FBI badge visible on his belt under his open jacket. His face was completely still, unreadable, but his eyes took in everything. The ice pack his son held to his face, the spilled water, the way Darius's friends pressed close on either side of him protectively. He moved forward with the careful precision of a man holding himself in rigid control, each step measured, each breath even. Only someone who knew him well would recognize the tension in his shoulders, the slight tightening around his eyes that betrayed the fury building beneath his calm exterior. Darius finally looked up as his father's shadow fell across the table. Their eyes met in a moment of shared pain and uncertainty. The diner held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Elias crossed the diner floor with measured steps, his presence commanding attention without a single word. The bell chimed again as Lydia Hale rushed in behind him, her nurse's instincts already assessing their son from across the room. "Darius, baby." Lydia hurried past her husband, sliding into the booth beside Darius. She gently turned his face toward the light, her fingers tender but professional as they probed the swelling. "Does it hurt to open your mouth? Any dizziness?" "I'm okay, Mom," Darius mumbled. But he leaned into her touch, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. Elias stood at the end of the table, his hands resting lightly on the surface. When he spoke, his voice was low and steady, carrying the weight of controlled authority. "Tell me everything." His eyes never left the mark on his son's face. Eleanor stepped forward, wringing her hands in her apron. "That monster Harlan came in here looking for trouble. The boys were just laughing about basketball practice, and he—" She took a deep breath, steadying herself. "He walked right up and slapped Darius. No warning, no reason. Just hit a child in my diner. He said we were being funny." Darius added, his voice barely above a whisper. We weren't even talking about him. We were just laughing about Coach Wilson at practice. And then his voice cracked slightly. Lydia's arm tightened around his shoulders. Malik nodded vigorously. It's true, Mr. Hale. We were just talking about basketball. Officer Harlan came in already mad about something. But I got it all on camera, Eleanor said firmly, pointing to the security dome. Clear as day. Installed it last month after some vandalism. Records everything in HD. Uploads it all to the cloud, too. Elias's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. I'd like to see that footage, Miss Briggs. Before Eleanor could respond, the bell chimed again. 2 uniformed officers stepped inside. Officers Brady and Martinez. The remaining customers quickly gathered their things and hurried out, leaving only the Hales, Darius's friends, and Eleanor. Evening, folks, Brady said, his fake cheerfulness filling the space. We're here to do a routine technical check on all business security systems in the area. Mind if we take a look at yours, Miss Briggs? Eleanor crossed her arms. Funny timing for a technical check. Never heard of such a thing before. Martinez stepped forward, his hand resting casually on his belt. New department policy. Just doing our job, ma'am. Well, I decline, Eleanor said firmly. My system's working just fine, and I know my rights. You need a warrant to access my private security setup. Brady's smile tightened. That's your choice, ma'am. But sometimes these old systems can be unreliable. Would hate for something to happen to your footage. If there's a technical problem, we could have prevented. Elias turned slowly to face the officers, his movement deliberate. Are you threatening Miss Briggs? Not at all, sir, Brady said smoothly. Just offering a friendly service, but we'll be back with the proper paperwork. He nodded to Martinez, and they left, the bell's cheerful ring contrasting with the heavy atmosphere they left behind. Once they were gone, Elias pulled a chair to the booth. Darius, look at me. When his son met his eyes, Elias continued. What happened to you today was wrong. It was criminal, and it will not go unpunished. But he's a cop, Darius said, his voice small. They all protect each other. Not this time. Elias's tone was absolute. He turned to Eleanor. Miss Briggs, could we speak privately for a moment? Eleanor nodded, leading him to the counter, while Lydia stayed with Darius and his friends, talking softly to them. I need to tell you something, Elias said quietly. I'm a federal agent, FBI. I specialize in civil rights violations and corruption cases. He pulled out his badge, letting Eleanor examine it. Eleanor's eyes widened. You're FBI all this time? Elias nodded. I keep it quiet for my family's safety, but I need you to know I have the authority and the resources to handle this properly. If you're willing to help. Willing? Eleanor almost laughed. I've watched Harlan and his friends bully this town for years. Nobody could stop them because nobody had the power to fight back. Her eyes gleamed. But you do, don't you? Yes, Elias said simply. Can you send me that footage now before anything happens to it? Eleanor hurried to her small office, returning with her phone. I'm sending it to your email right now. I've got backups too, just in case. Been dealing with their kind long enough to know better. While they talked, Lydia helped Darius clean his face, her gentle hands checking for any signs of serious injury. Andre and Malik shared everything they could remember about the incident, their words tumbling over each other in their eagerness to help. We should get him home, Lydia said when Elias returned to the table. He needs rest. Elias helped Darius stand, noting how his son tried to hide his trembling. Miss Briggs, thank you. We'll be in touch. Take care of that boy, Eleanor called after them. And Agent Hale, make them pay. The drive home was quiet. Darius went straight to his room, Lydia following with an ice pack and pain relievers. Elias stood in the hallway, watching his son curl up on his bed, looking so much younger than his 15 years. That night, while Darius slept fitfully down the hall, Elias sat in his home office, watching the security footage for the fourth time. The slap echoed through his headphones, sharp, sudden, cruel. He paused the video on Harlan's smirking face, studying every detail while his mind began mapping out the path ahead. Sunlight filtered through the kitchen windows as Elias stood at his laptop, coffee cooling beside him as he prepared to email the security footage to his federal contacts. The video would ignite an investigation, clear evidence of police brutality against a minor, impossible to ignore. His phone buzzed. Eleanor's name flashed on the screen. "They took it." Eleanor's voice cracked with panic. "The whole security system. They ripped it right out of the walls." Elias's fingers tightened on his phone. "When?" "Must have been overnight. I just opened up and—" She took a shaky breath. "The wires are hanging everywhere. They didn't even try to hide what they did." "Don't touch anything. I'm on my way." Elias grabbed his keys, pausing only to tell Lydia where he was going. The morning air was crisp as he pulled into the diner's parking lot a short while later. A few regular customers stood outside, Tsintai, murmuring among themselves. Inside, Eleanor paced behind the counter, her face pale. "Look," she said, pointing to the ceiling. Where the security dome had been, only torn wires remained, dangling like exposed nerves. The mounting bracket hung loose, screws scattered on the floor below. Elias pulled out his phone and began taking photos, documenting every angle of the damage. "They broke in through the back door," Eleanor said, leading him to the kitchen. "Picked the lock clean. Didn't even break anything. Professionals." She laughed bitterly. "Professionals with badges, I'm guessing." The back door showed no signs of forced entry, but Elias photographed it anyway. In the small office, the recorder unit was gone, leaving only empty shelves and more disconnected cables. "This is good," Elias said quietly. Eleanor stared at him. "Good? They stole my evidence." "They proved there was evidence worth stealing." Elias's voice was steady. "This isn't random vandalism. This is confirmation of a cover-up, which is a federal crime. They're scared, Eleanor. They should be. But without the video, we still have the copy you sent me." He touched her shoulder gently. "This isn't over. It's just beginning." After assuring Eleanor he would handle everything, Elias drove to the police station. The front desk officer barely glanced up as he approached. "I need to speak with Chief Driscoll," Elias said, "regarding an assault on my son yesterday." "Chief's busy," the officer drawled, not looking up from his phone. "Tell him Elias Hale is here about Officer Harlan's actions at Briggs's diner." The officer's thumb paused mid-scroll. He reached for his desk phone, murmuring something too low to hear. A moment later, he nodded toward the hallway. "Third door on the right." Chief Raymond Driscoll sat behind a large desk, his silver hair perfectly combed, his uniform crisp. He smiled without warmth as Elias entered. "Mr. Hale," Driscoll said, gesturing to a chair. "What can I do for you this morning?" "I'm here to file a formal complaint against Officer Victor Harlan for assaulting my son yesterday." Driscoll's smile didn't waver. "Ah, yes. The unfortunate miscommunication at the diner. Officer Harlan has already filed his report on the incident." "Miscommunication?" Elias kept his voice level. He slapped a young boy across the face. According to Officer Harlan's report, he was responding to disruptive behavior that could have escalated into a public disturbance. He used minimal contact to maintain order. There were witnesses who have provided statements supporting Officer Harlan's account. Driscoll shuffled some papers on his desk. "Your son and his friends were being loud, disrespectful. Officer Harlan diffused the situation before it could become dangerous." Elias leaned forward slightly. "The security footage shows exactly what happened." "What security footage would that be?" Driscoll's eyes gleamed. "I understand Miss Briggs's system suffered some technical difficulties last night. Shame about that. These older systems can be so unreliable." "Are you saying you won't investigate this assault?" "I'm saying there's nothing to investigate unless you have clear evidence of misconduct." Driscoll spread his hands. We take all complaints seriously, Mr. Hale, but we can't act on unsubstantiated allegations. My son's face isn't an unsubstantiated allegation. Teenager's roughhouse. Who knows how he got that mark? Driscoll's tone hardened slightly. Now, if there's nothing else, Elias stood slowly. This isn't over, Chief. No? Driscoll's smile returned, cold as winter. I think it is. Have a good day, Mr. Hale. As Elias walked through the station, he heard snickers from a group of officers near the break room. He caught fragments of their conversation. Put the kid in his place. Showed them who's boss. They fell silent as he passed, but their smirks remained. The sun had grown harsh by the time Elias reached his car. He sat behind the wheel, processing everything he had seen and heard. The stolen security system, Driscoll's dismissal, the officers' open mockery. It painted a clear picture. This wasn't just about one racist cop losing his temper. The entire department was united in protecting their own, maintaining their power through intimidation and cover-ups. Elias parked in his driveway, his mind already cataloging resources and strategies. The local police had revealed themselves as a unified front of corruption. Taking down Harlan wouldn't be enough. The whole system needed to be exposed and dismantled. The sun cast long shadows across the sidewalk as Darius and his friends walked home from school. Their usual animated chatter had died down to nervous whispers ever since they had spotted the police cruiser 2 blocks back, rolling along at a crawl behind them. Just keep walking, Andre whispered. Don't even look back. But Darius couldn't help stealing a glance over his shoulder. Through the cruiser's windshield, he saw Officer Harlan's face, hard and mean, eyes locked onto him. The officer's hands gripped the steering wheel so tight his knuckles showed white. Darius's heart hammered in his chest. His face still stung where Harlan had struck him the day before, the memory making his stomach clench. He picked up his pace, and his friends matched it without a word. The cruiser maintained its distance, engine purring like a predator. When they reached the corner where Andre and their other friend usually split off toward their street, both boys hesitated. We can walk you all the way, Andre offered, his voice low. Darius shook his head. I'm only 2 blocks from home. Go on? His friends reluctantly turned onto their street, leaving Darius alone with the prowling police car behind him. His palms were sweaty around his backpack straps as he walked the final blocks, feeling Harlan's eyes boring into his back the whole way. When Darius finally reached his driveway, the cruiser rolled past slowly. Harlan's face appeared in the side window, his expression promising that this wasn't over. Then he accelerated away, leaving Darius trembling on his front step. Inside, Elias looked up from his laptop as Darius burst through the door. One look at his son's face told him everything he needed to know. Harlan? Elias asked quietly. Darius nodded, dropping his backpack. He followed us home. Didn't say anything, just watched. Elias crossed the room and put his hands on Darius's shoulders. That's what bullies do when they're scared. They try to intimidate people into silence, but we're not going to be silent. I know, Darius said, but his voice shook. It's just, he has a badge and a gun, and everybody at the station backs him up. Look at me, Elias said firmly. Darius raised his eyes to meet his father's steady gaze. He has a badge, but I have the law, real law, not their twisted version. And I promise you, son, he's not going to win this. Darius managed a small smile, drawing strength from his father's certainty. Thanks, Dad. In the kitchen, Elias returned to his laptop where dozens of private messages filled his inbox. People who had been in the diner during the assault were reaching out, but only in secret. He's done this before, one message read. My nephew talked back to him last year and got the same treatment. We couldn't prove anything. Another stated, I saw everything. But I can't come forward. My husband works for the city. They'd find a reason to fire him. Message after message told similar stories. Witnesses to Harlan's brutality, victims of his aggression, all too frightened of retaliation to speak publicly. Elias carefully documented each account, building a pattern of abuse that stretched back years. Lydia came home from her shift at the medical center and found Elias still at his laptop. She read over his shoulder, her expression growing more concerned with each message. "Elias," she said softly, "these people are scared for good reason. The department clearly has no limits. What's to stop them from escalating?" Elias turned to face his wife. "That's exactly why we can't back down. Every person who wrote to me is living in fear of their own police force. Darius is living in fear. How many more kids need to be terrorized before someone stands up?" "I know," Lydia sighed. "I just worry about what they might do next. Following Darius home, that's a threat, plain and simple. It's also proof they're getting desperate." Elias closed his laptop. "They're used to people backing down, looking the other way. We're not going to do that." "Just promise me you'll be careful," Lydia said. "We need justice, but we also need you safe." Elias pulled her into a hug. "I'm always careful. That's why I'm good at my job." Later, as the family went through their bedtime routine, Darius paused at his bedroom window. "Dad." Elias joined him, following his son's gaze to the street below. An unmarked sedan with tinted windows sat idle at the curb, its engine running. After a long moment, it pulled away slowly, vanishing into the darkness. "Another attempt at intimidation," Elias said calmly, though his jaw tightened. "They want us looking over our shoulders, jumping at shadows." "Is it working?" Darius asked quietly. Elias squeezed his son's shoulder. "No. It's just showing us how important this fight is. People who abuse their power count on fear to protect them. But fear only works if we let it." Darius nodded, drawing himself up straighter. "I'm not letting it." "That's my boy." Elias pulled Darius into a quick hug. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow's another day, and we're not backing down." After Darius was in bed, Elias stood at his own bedroom window, watching the empty street where the unmarked car had been. In the glass, he could see Lydia's reflection as she got ready for bed, her movements betraying her tension. "They're watching us," she said softly. "Good," Elias replied. "Let them watch. Let them see exactly what it looks like when someone stands up to their corruption, because this is just the beginning." Elias sat in his home office as dawn broke, the soft light filtering through the blinds. Coffee grew cold beside his keyboard as he reviewed his case notes, spreadsheets, and witness statements from the diner incident. The pattern was clear. Local authorities would block every official channel. He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his tired eyes. 20 years of FBI work had taught him one thing. When the front door's locked, find another way in. The video evidence was gone, but that just meant he needed to build a different kind of case. His phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Ellison, an elderly woman who had been at the diner. "Can we talk? Not at my house. Somewhere private," Elias replied, suggesting the library study room. As he typed, another message arrived from a different neighbor, then another. People wanted to talk, just not publicly. Lydia appeared in his doorway, still in her nursing scrubs from the night shift. "Have you slept at all?" "Couldn't," Elias said, showing her the messages. "Too many people reaching out. This goes deeper than we thought." "What do you mean?" She sat on the edge of his desk, concern etching her features. "Harlan's been doing this for years, but it's not just him. There's a whole system protecting him." Elias pulled up a document. "Look at this. Every complaint against him gets routed to Judge Preston. Every single one. And Preston dismisses them all for lack of evidence or insufficient cause. That's not coincidence." "No, it's not," Lydia said. And I bet if we dig deeper, we'll find connections between Preston, the police brass, and local politicians. Elias stood, pacing the small office. This isn't just about what happened to Darius anymore. It's about everyone who's been silenced. Elias, Lydia's voice held a warning. Be careful. These people have power, and they're already watching us. Exactly why they need to be stopped. He showed her another message. Mrs. Ellison's grandson, Harlan, broke his arm during an arrest 2 years ago. Claimed the kid resisted. No witnesses came forward because they were scared. Because they knew nothing would change, Lydia said softly. But something's different now. People are reaching out. They just need someone who can protect them while they tell their stories. And that's you, Lydia said. That's the FBI. Once I have enough evidence of systematic corruption, this becomes a federal case. Local authorities can't stop that. He spent the next hours meeting people in quiet corners of the library. Mrs. Ellison brought photos of her grandson's injuries. Mr. Alvarez, a retired teacher, described watching Harlan harass Hispanic students outside the high school. Each story built on the last, revealing a pattern of abuse protected by official indifference. Judge Preston threw out my complaint without even reading it, Mrs. Ellison said, her hands trembling. Said I had no proof beyond my grandson's word. And the hospital records? Elias asked. Disappeared from the file, just like that security footage from the diner. Elias documented everything meticulously, building a timeline of similar incidents. The same judge, the same missing evidence, the same witnesses too frightened to speak publicly. Back home, he created a secure digital folder, encrypting each testimony. Darius passed by the office, pausing in the doorway. More people talking about Harlan? Elias nodded. You're not alone, son. He's hurt a lot of people, but they're starting to find their voices. Because of what happened to you. Because it's time. Elias met his son's eyes. Sometimes it takes one incident to break the silence. But this isn't just about making him pay for hitting you. It's about making sure he can't hurt anyone else. Darius considered this. The whole system's corrupt, isn't it? Parts of it are. Deep parts. But systems can be changed if you know how to take them apart. And you do. Elias allowed himself a small smile. It's what I've trained for. Corruption thrives in darkness. We're going to shine a light so bright they can't hide anymore. Lydia appeared behind Darius, wrapping an arm around their son. Just remember what we're risking, she said to Elias. These people play dirty. I know. Elias turned back to his computer. That's why we have to be smarter, more patient. Build a case they can't bury or dismiss. He worked through the morning, mapping connections between incidents, identifying patterns in how complaints were handled. Every testimony added another piece to the puzzle, revealing not just individual acts of abuse, but a coordinated system of protection. By afternoon, Elias had compiled enough preliminary evidence to justify a deeper investigation, not just into Harlan, but into Judge Preston, the police leadership, and anyone else involved in maintaining their corrupt power structure. I'm heading out, he told Lydia, gathering his files. Got a few more people to talk to. She caught his arm. Promise me you're being careful. Always am. He kissed her cheek. This is just the beginning. They think they can intimidate us into silence, but they don't understand what they're dealing with. And what's that? Someone who knows how to fight corruption from the inside out. He checked his phone, noting 3 more messages from community members wanting to talk. They've gotten away with this for years because nobody had the power to stop them. That changes now. Elias headed for the door, case files secure in his briefcase. The morning's work had confirmed what he suspected. This wasn't just about one bad officer or one corrupt judge. It was about dismantling an entire system built on intimidation and abuse of power. Elias stood in the late afternoon sun outside Walker's grocery, watching shoppers hurry past with their bags. Mrs. Carver approached cautiously, looking over her shoulder before stopping near him. Her gray hair was pulled back tightly, hands fidgeting with her purse strap. "Thank you for meeting me," Elias said quietly. She nodded, eyes darting around the parking lot. "I shouldn't be here, but after what happened to your boy—" Her voice trembled. "Take your time. Tell me what you've seen." Mrs. Carver drew a shaky breath. "My daughter worked at the gas station on Pine Street. Harlan would come in late at night when she was alone, stand too close, make comments, follow her to her car sometimes." Elias took out his notebook, jotting details. "When was this?" "Last summer. She quit after 2 months. Couldn't take it anymore." Mrs. Carver wrung her hands. "We tried complaining to his supervisor. Next day, Harlan shows up at our house, says he's doing a routine check about suspicious activity in the neighborhood. Just stood there smirking. Did you file a formal complaint?" "Started to. But Judge Preston—" She shook her head. "My husband's business depends on local permits. We got the message." Elias noticed her hand shaking. "I can protect you if you'll make an official statement." "No." The word came out sharp, fearful. "I shouldn't even be talking to you. They watch everything in this town. My daughter moved away because of him. I'm just glad she's safe now." "Others have come forward," Elias said gently. "Together, we can stop this." "You don't understand." Mrs. Carver glanced at a passing police cruiser. "It's not just Harlan. The whole department backs him up. The judge throws out complaints. The mayor's office loses paperwork. They're all connected. That's exactly why this needs to stop." She backed away, clutching her purse. "I'm sorry about your son. Truly. But I can't sign anything. I can't testify. Please don't contact me again." Elias watched her hurry to her car, shoulders hunched. The fear in this town was like a thick fog, choking people's voices. He had seen it before in corruption cases, how power twisted itself into knots, how threats became whispers, became silence. Later that afternoon, he walked into the police station, another formal complaint form in hand. The desk sergeant barely looked up. "Drop it in the box," he drawled, pointing to an overflowing basket. "I filed one yesterday too," Elias said. "It seems to have been misplaced." The sergeant shrugged. "Processing delays. Lots of paperwork these days. I'm sure you'll find it." Elias placed the new form directly on the desk. "I'll keep filing them until one gets processed." "Suit yourself." The sergeant swept the form into a drawer. "Could take weeks, though. Months, even. System's real backed up." Elias recognized the game. Delay, obstruct, lose documents, wait for people to give up. But he wasn't most people. "I'll check back tomorrow," he said pleasantly. "And the next day, and the day after that." The sergeant's expression hardened. "Might want to reconsider that. Persistent complaints can be frustrating for everyone involved." Elias held his gaze. "Is that a threat, Sergeant?" "Just friendly advice." The sergeant turned away. Next in line. Driving home, Elias cataloged the day's interactions in his mind. The fearful witness, the obstructive sergeant, the implied threats, all pieces of the larger puzzle. He pulled into his driveway, noticing immediately the white paper taped to his front door. The message was typed, no signature. "Drop it. Some things are better left alone." He was photographing the note when Darius came home from basketball practice. "What's that?" his son asked, fear creeping into his voice. Elias quickly removed the paper. "Nothing to worry about. Just some people who don't like questions being asked." "Are we in danger?" Darius stood closer to his father. "Maybe we should stop. Just let it go." "No." Elias put his arm around Darius's shoulders. "That's exactly what they want. They think fear will protect them. But fear only works if we let it." Inside, he added the warning note to his growing file. The threatening message, Mrs. Carver's account, the sergeant's obstruction. Each incident strengthened the pattern of institutional corruption. But he needed more. He needed evidence that couldn't be buried or dismissed. Darius lingered in the doorway of his office. What if they do something worse than notes? Then they'll prove exactly why they need to be stopped. Elias looked up from his work. I know you're scared, but running from bullies only makes them bolder. Trust me to handle this. I do trust you. Darius hesitated. But everyone else is scared too. Mrs. Ellison stopped talking to me at church. Mr. Alvarez crossed the street when he saw me coming. Fear is contagious, Elias said. But so is courage. One person stands up, then another, then another. That's how change happens. He spent the next hour updating his case files, cross-referencing dates and names. The warning note joined dozens of other documented incidents of intimidation. The pattern was clear, but he needed something concrete. Evidence that couldn't be lost or explained away. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. The message was brief. We need to talk. I can help. Elias stared at the screen, weighing the risks. It could be a setup, or it could be the breakthrough he needed. He typed back, when and where. The response came quickly. Tomorrow. Abandoned gas station on Miller Road. 8 p.m. Come alone. Elias saved the message and continued working. Somewhere in this corrupt town, someone else had decided to take a stand. The question was whether they would survive long enough to make a difference. Elias parked his unmarked car behind the abandoned gas station on Miller Road, headlights off. The setting sun cast long shadows across the cracked pavement, painting the empty lot in shades of orange and gray. He checked his mirrors. No other vehicles in sight. Deputy Logan Pierce emerged from behind the building, walking quickly with his head down. He wasn't in uniform, wearing instead a plain brown jacket and jeans. Every few steps, he glanced over his shoulder. Elias stepped out of his car. Deputy Pierce. Logan's voice was barely above a whisper. He stayed close to the building's shadow. Thanks for coming alone. You said you could help. Logan ran a hand through his hair, shifting his weight from foot to foot. What I'm about to tell you, what I'm about to share, it could end my career or worse. I understand the risk, Elias said, and I can protect you. A bitter laugh escaped Logan's lips. Like you protected your son. No offense, sir, but you don't know what you're dealing with here. This goes deep, really deep. Then help me understand. Logan looked around again before continuing. It's not just Harlan. He's just the enforcer, the visible face. The whole department runs on corruption. Has for years. Explain. Evidence disappears. Reports get rewritten. Complaints vanish. Logan's words came faster now, like he had been holding them back for years. Dash cam footage showing excessive force, technical malfunction, witness statements about harassment, lost in processing, drug money seized during raids, never makes it to evidence. Elias took out his notebook. How long have you known? Since my first year. I tried speaking up once early on. Logan pulled up his sleeve, revealing a faded scar. 2 days later, I got jumped in the parking lot. 3 guys in masks said next time they'd do worse. The diner footage, Elias said. What really happened? Logan glanced at the darkening sky. Harlan and Sergeant Mills went in that night, disabled the system, took the drive. Standard procedure when we need evidence gone. He paused, reaching into his jacket pocket, hands trembling slightly. But I'm the one who handles digital uploads. Before they grabbed the drive, I copied everything to a secure cloud account, then downloaded it here. He held up a small flash drive. Every angle, clear as day, shows exactly what Harlan did to your son. Elias kept his voice steady. Why are you showing me this now? Because I'm tired. Logan's shoulders sagged. Tired of watching them hurt people. Tired of being part of it. I've been waiting for someone with real authority to take them down. Someone they can't touch, but no one's untouchable, Deputy. They think they are. The chief, the judge, the mayor's office, they're all connected. Cover each other's tracks. Share the profits. Logan held out the drive. But this, They can't bury. Not if it comes from a federal agent. Elias took the driver carefully. I'll need you to testify. No. Logan backed away. I gave you the evidence. That's all I can do. If they find out I leaked anything. His voice cracked. I've got a family, too. We can protect you. Witness protection. You don't get it. Logan's eyes were wide with fear. They have people everywhere. The hospital, the school system, local businesses. One word from them and my life here is over. My kids' lives. A car passed on the distant highway. Both men instinctively pressed closer to the building's shadow. At least let me document your statement, Elias said. Off the record for now. Logan shook his head. The video shows enough. Times, dates, badge numbers. It's all there. But I was never here. Never spoke to you. Never gave you anything. Deputy, please, just make it count. Logan was already backing away. Make them pay, but leave me out of it. Elias watched him disappear around the building's corner, footsteps fading into the gathering dark. The flash drive felt heavy in his hand, small but powerful, like a loaded gun. He got back in his car, starting the engine, but keeping the lights off. The drive would need to be verified, authenticated. He would need to prove chain of custody, establish its origins without compromising Logan. But if the footage was intact, a patrol car rolled past on the main road. Elias waited until its taillights vanished before pulling out. He took a circuitous route home, checking his mirrors frequently, watching for followers. The streets were quiet, houses lit from within as families settled in for the evening. Normal lives in a town rotting from the inside. How many others like Logan were out there? How many saw the corruption but stayed silent out of fear? His grip tightened on the steering wheel. The flash drive sat securely in his inner pocket, pressed against his chest. After days of dead ends and threats, finally something solid. Something they couldn't make disappear with bureaucratic delays or midnight break-ins. He thought of Darius, of the red mark Harlan's hand had left on his son's face, of Mrs. Carver and her daughter, of Logan's scar, of all the others who had been silenced. The evidence in his pocket wasn't just about one assault in a diner. It was about breaking a system built on fear. Elias turned onto his street, scanning for unfamiliar vehicles before pulling into his driveway. The house was warm with light, Darius's shadow moving past an upstairs window. He touched the pocket containing the drive one more time before stepping out of the car. Hope was a dangerous thing in a corrupt town, but tonight at least, it felt justified. Elias sat at his home office desk early the next morning, fingers hovering over his laptop keyboard. The flash drive from Logan felt like it carried the weight of the entire town's secrets. He plugged it in, holding his breath as the files loaded. The video player opened. Crystal clear footage filled his screen, multiple angles showing the diner interior. He clicked play, his jaw tightening as he watched the scene unfold again. Harlan's swagger as he entered, Darius and his friends laughing at their own private joke. The moment Harlan's face twisted with rage, the sharp crack of the slap. The timestamp was clear, the metadata intact. Every angle showed the same unprovoked assault. Thank God, he whispered, immediately creating multiple backups on his secure federal drives. He wouldn't let this evidence disappear like the original. Elias composed an email to Elena Vargas, his contact at the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. He attached the footage along with his preliminary case notes, documenting the subsequent cover-up attempts. His phone rang 20 minutes later. Elias. Elena's voice was sharp with concern. I just watched the footage. Clear assault of a minor. Abuse of power. Absolutely no provocation. We're starting review immediately. The local department is actively suppressing evidence, Elias said. They've already attempted to destroy the original recording. Document everything. I'm putting this on priority status. Papers rustled in the background. We should have preliminary authorization for intervention within days. Relief flooded through him. Thank you, Elena. Don't thank me yet. Keep building your case. And Elias, watch your back. Officers like this get desperate when cornered. As if to prove her point, his phone buzzed with a text from Darius's friend Zion just after lunch. Harlan followed us from school, made us stop walking, said we better forget what we saw or else. Elias's hands clenched. He called Zion immediately, voice calm despite his anger. Tell me exactly what happened. He pulled up in his cruiser. Zion's voice shook. Made us stand there while he talked about how memories can be tricky things, how it's safer to forget. Said he'd hate to see us get hurt because we remembered wrong. Are you somewhere safe now? Yeah. My mom picked us up. But Darius? Zion paused. He's really scared, Mr. Hale. We all are. Elias assured Zion he was doing the right thing by reporting it, then called Eleanor at the diner. She answered in a whisper. They're here again. 2 officers doing another routine inspection. 3rd time this week. They're going through my permits, making threats about violations. Document everything, Elias told her. Take photos if you can do it safely. We're building a pattern. He spent the afternoon in his office digging through public records. Department expense reports showed irregularities, equipment purchases that never arrived, maintenance fees for vehicles that didn't exist, overtime pay for shifts that couldn't be verified. He created a spreadsheet tracking every questionable transaction. Lydia found him still working when she got home from her shift at the clinic. She set a cup of coffee on his desk. Darius is upstairs, she said softly. He barely touched his dinner. Said he keeps seeing Harlan's car everywhere he goes. Elias rubbed his eyes. How is he? Trying to be brave. But he's 15, Elias. He shouldn't have to be brave just to walk to school. She squeezed his shoulder. Tell me there's good news. The DOJ is reviewing the case. The video evidence is strong. He showed her his financial spreadsheet. And this could prove systematic corruption, missing funds, false reports, possible kickbacks. Be careful, she said. The more you find, the more dangerous they become. I know. He covered her hand with his. But we can't back down now. Not just for Darius, but for everyone they've hurt. I know. She kissed his forehead. Just remember, they're not above anything. These men have built their careers on intimidation. His phone rang again. Elena from the DOJ. Elias. The review board just finished their preliminary assessment. This is exactly the kind of case we've been waiting for. Clear evidence, multiple violations, signs of systemic abuse. We're drafting intervention paperwork now. Timeline, days, not weeks. We'll need witness statements, your financial records, everything you've gathered. But Elias, her voice softened. This looks promising. Really promising. He thanked her and hung up, letting out a long breath. Upstairs, he could hear Darius moving around his room, probably trying to finish homework while looking over his shoulder. Outside, darkness was falling on their quiet street, where any passing headlights could belong to those sworn to protect or those bent on intimidation. Elias turned back to his computer, adding another suspicious payment to his spreadsheet. The evidence was mounting. The wheels of justice were finally turning. But until final authorization came through, his family remained vulnerable. He thought of Logan risking everything to share that footage, of Eleanor standing firm despite repeated harassment, of Darius trying to stay strong while looking over his shoulder. They were all counting on him to build an airtight case. The cursor blinked on his screen, waiting for the next entry. Outside, a car drove past slowly, its headlights sweeping across his office wall. Elias kept working, documenting every abuse of power, every financial irregularity, every attempt at intimidation. The truth was coming together, piece by damning piece. Sunlight streamed through the kitchen windows as Elias gathered his family for breakfast. Darius sat picking at his toast while Lydia poured coffee. The tension that had gripped their home for days felt slightly lighter this morning. "I have some good news," Elias said, watching his son's face. "The Department of Justice is reviewing our case. They've seen the video evidence." Darius looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. "Really? They believe us?" "They do." Elias reached across the table to squeeze his hand. "Elena, my contact there, says it's exactly the kind of case they're looking for. Clear evidence of abuse of power, multiple violations." "What happens next?" Lydia asked, sitting down with her coffee. "They're drafting intervention paperwork now. Once that's approved, they'll launch a formal investigation." Elias smiled at Darius. "That means Harlan and everyone who helped cover this up will face real consequences." "How long?" Darius's voice was quiet but steady. "Days, according to Elena. They're fast-tracking it." Elias pulled out his phone, showing them an email. "See? They're already requesting all my documentation, witness statements, financial records, everything I've gathered." For the first time in days, Darius's shoulders relaxed slightly. "So they can't just make it disappear anymore." "No, son. This is federal now, way above their heads." Elias watched relief wash over his son's face. The truth is coming out. By mid-morning, whispers were circulating through town. Elias got a call from Eleanor at the diner. "The officers who've been harassing me didn't show up today," she said. "And I just overheard some customers talking about possible suspensions coming at the department. Is it true?" "Nothing's official yet," Elias said carefully. "But change is coming." Around lunchtime, he spotted Harlan on patrol while driving to the post office. The officer's usual swagger was gone, replaced by tense shoulders and darting glances. When he saw Elias's car, he quickly turned down a side street. Elias's phone buzzed with a text from Logan. "Hearing rumors about Fed investigation. Ready to testify if needed. Have more documentation to share. Stay safe." Elias texted back, "Keep everything secure. I'll contact you when it's time." He spent the afternoon organizing his files, making sure every piece of evidence was properly documented and backed up. Financial records showing suspicious payments, witness statements describing years of abuse, photos of the damaged security system at the diner, the video footage itself with all its damning clarity. Lydia called from the clinic during her break. "The atmosphere in town feels different today, like everyone's holding their breath, waiting for something to happen." "People are tired of being afraid," Elias replied. "Once they see real action being taken, more will come forward." "Darius texted me earlier, said Harlan's car wasn't anywhere near the school today. They're getting nervous, starting to realize they can't intimidate their way out of this one." That evening, the Hales sat down to dinner together. The constant tension of the past weeks had eased, replaced by cautious optimism. Darius even smiled when Lydia asked about his history test. "I actually could focus today," he said, reaching for seconds of pasta. "Didn't keep looking over my shoulder." "Things are going to get better," Elias promised. "The truth always comes out eventually. Sometimes it just needs a little help." They lingered at the table longer than usual, sharing stories and small jokes. The weight of fear that had pressed down on them felt lighter. Even the street outside seemed less threatening. The passing cars were just cars again, not potential threats. After dinner, Darius worked on homework at the kitchen table instead of hiding in his room. Lydia hummed while loading the dishwasher. Elias reviewed his files one more time, making sure everything was ready for formal submission. "Dad?" Darius looked up from his textbook. "Thank you for not letting them get away with it." Elias met his son's eyes, seeing not just relief there, but pride. "No one has the right to hurt you, Darius. Not ever. and especially not someone sworn to protect and serve. I know, but a lot of kids don't have dads who can fight back like this. That's why we keep fighting, Elias said. Not just for you, but for everyone who's been silenced. The peaceful evening stretched on. Lydia made hot chocolate. They watched a movie together, Darius actually laughing at the funny parts instead of staring anxiously out the window. It felt like their first normal family night in weeks. Just before midnight, after Darius had gone up to bed, Elias's phone lit up with a message. His stomach dropped as he read it. Logan has been attacked. He's at Memorial Hospital. Critical condition. The brief moment of peace shattered like glass. The hospital's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows as Elias hurried through the empty corridors. His footsteps echoed against the linoleum floors, each step carrying the weight of growing dread. The night nurse directed him to room 312, her face grim. Elias stopped in the doorway, his breath catching at the sight before him. Logan lay motionless in the hospital bed, his face so swollen it was barely recognizable. Tubes and wires connected him to softly beeping machines. Dark bruises covered every visible inch of skin. Mr. Hale. A doctor approached, clipboard in hand. I'm Dr. Whitaker. I've been overseeing Deputy Pierce's care since he was brought in. How bad is it? Elias asked, his voice tight. Multiple facial fractures, 3 broken ribs, severe trauma to the larynx. Dr. Whitaker spoke quietly, glancing at his notes. The damage to his throat is extensive. Even after it heals, he won't be able to speak for weeks. Elias moved closer to the bed, studying the brutal evidence of what had happened to the one person who dared to help him. Was he conscious when they found him? No. A jogger discovered him in the park late the previous night. The doctor hesitated. Mr. Hale, these injuries, they were deliberately inflicted. Whoever did this knew exactly how to cause maximum damage without being lethal. They wanted him alive, but silent, Elias said, more to himself than the doctor. The police were here earlier, taking statements. Dr. Whitaker added carefully. They seemed unusually quick to label it a random mugging. Elias's jaw clenched. He knew exactly which officers had visited, the same ones loyal to Harlan, already working to bury another truth. He pulled out his phone to photograph Logan's injuries, documenting everything while he still could. The morning sun was just beginning to paint the sky pink when his phone buzzed. Elena's name flashed on the screen. His DOJ contact. Finally, something might go right. Elias! Her voice was strained. I'm sorry. The intervention authorization has been pulled. The words hit him like physical blows. What? How? Someone way above my pay grade made a call. All I know is there was contact from a major political donor in your district. Suddenly, we're being told there are insufficient grounds to proceed. She paused. Elias, I've never seen interference this fast or this complete. Whatever you're onto, you've scared someone with serious influence. His free hand gripped the hospital bed rail until his knuckles went white. Elena, I have video evidence, witness statements, financial records showing. I know, but orders are orders. They're shutting it down completely. She lowered her voice. Watch your back, Elias. These people clearly aren't playing by any rules. These people clearly. The call ended, leaving him standing in the sterile hospital room with unconscious Logan and his crumbling case. On instinct, he pulled out his secure tablet to check the video file. The foundation everything else was built on. Error message. File corrupted. Elias tried again, his fingers moving faster. Another error. He launched his recovery software, but the damage was too extensive. Someone had gotten to the file, implanting corruption that would trigger once it was copied. The footage was gone. A nurse came in to check Logan's vitals, her soft shoes squeaking on the floor. Poor thing, she murmured, adjusting an IV line. Family's been notified, but they're out of state. Won't be here until tonight. Elias looked at Logan's battered face. at what had happened to someone who simply tried to do the right thing. In less than 6 hours, every piece of hope had been systematically destroyed. The video was gone. Federal intervention blocked. His key witness would be unable to speak for weeks. And hovering over it all was the shadow of whoever had enough power to make the Justice Department back down with a single phone call. He walked numbly through the hospital, sliding doors opening into the pale morning light. The parking lot was starting to fill with early shift workers, normal people heading to normal jobs. But nothing felt normal anymore. Inside his car, Elias gripped the steering wheel, trying to steady his racing thoughts. Months of careful work demolished in a single night. The realization that corruption reached far beyond a small-town police department, stretching into halls of power he hadn't even considered. And worst of all, the knowledge that he would have to go home and tell Darius that justice wasn't coming after all. The morning sun crept higher, warming the car's interior. But Elias felt cold. In his mind, he saw Darius's face from just hours ago, finally showing hope again. Heard his son's words. "Thank you for not letting them get away with it." Except they had gotten away with it. They had won using the same tactics they always used: violence, intimidation, and the power of money to silence truth. The system hadn't failed. It had worked exactly as designed, protecting those at the top while crushing anyone who challenged them. Through the windshield, Elias watched hospital staff changing shifts. A young nurse helped an elderly patient into a wheelchair. A maintenance worker emptied outdoor trash bins. The ordinary world kept turning while his had just imploded. His phone buzzed again. Lydia, probably wondering where he was, but he couldn't face her yet. Couldn't find the words to explain how thoroughly they had been beaten. How he had not only failed to get justice for Darius, but his efforts had gotten Logan brutally attacked. Elias sat motionless in his car, the weight of defeat pressing down on him like a physical thing. Every path forward seemed blocked, every piece of evidence destroyed or suppressed, every witness silenced or scared away. The morning light grew stronger, but inside his car, shadows seemed to be winning. Elias's car pulled into the driveway just as the sun broke over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that felt mockingly cheerful. His feet dragged as he walked to the front door, shoulders heavy with the weight of everything that had collapsed overnight. Lydia was waiting in the kitchen, 2 untouched cups of coffee on the counter. Her eyes searched his face, reading the defeat there before he could speak. "How bad?" "Everything." Elias sank into a chair. "Logan's in the hospital, beaten half to death. The video's gone. The DOJ backed off after some donor made a call." He pressed his palms against his eyes. "It's all gone, Lydia. Every single piece we had." Footsteps on the stairs made them both look up. Darius stood in the doorway, still in his pajamas, dark circles under his eyes suggesting another sleepless night. "Dad?" Darius's voice was small. "What happened?" Elias opened his mouth to answer, but Darius continued, the words tumbling out. "Is it true what everyone at school says, that they always get away with it? That there's no real justice for people like us?" The question hit Elias like a physical blow. He saw the despair in his son's eyes, the crumbling of something fundamental, that childlike belief that right would triumph over wrong, that truth would matter more than power. "Darius?" Elias started, but found himself struggling for words. "Because they say Harlan's done this before, that nothing ever happens, that the whole system just protects them." Darius's voice cracked. "So maybe they're right. Maybe justice isn't real." Lydia moved to comfort Darius, but Elias held up his hand, standing slowly. Something was shifting inside him, grief transforming into steel-hard determination. "Listen to me," Elias said, his voice low and intense. Justice is real, but sometimes we have to fight for it differently than we planned. He walked to his son, placing both hands on his shoulders. The system they built, their system, it failed us. But that's not the only way to get justice. I've spent 20 years learning how these networks operate, how corruption protects itself, and I'm done playing by their rules. What does that mean? Darius asked. It means we switch tactics. Elias's mind was already racing, pulling up old contacts, access points, investigative tools he hadn't used in years. They think they've destroyed our evidence. Fine, we'll find different evidence. They have power through money and influence. Then we'll follow that money until we expose every dirty connection. Elias? Lydia watched him carefully. I know, he met her worried gaze. But I won't let them win. Not this time. He went to his home office, powered up his secure laptop, and began pulling financial records. Years of experience had taught him that corruption always left a trail in bank transfers, property records, tax documents. He started with Harlan's department, examining budget allocations and expense reports. Hours passed. Darius left for school, though Elias barely registered it. Lydia brought him fresh coffee, hovering briefly before heading to her shift at the clinic. The sun tracked across his office window as he dug deeper. Patterns emerged. Irregular payments, equipment purchases that didn't match inventory, training expenses for programs that didn't exist. But it was bigger than just department-level corruption. The numbers led to shell companies, which led to property holdings, which led to a name that kept appearing: Dominic Vale. Elias sat back, rubbing his tired eyes. Vale was one of the wealthiest men in the county, a real estate developer who donated millions to local politicians. His name carried weight in every circle of power. More digging revealed a web of connections. Vale's companies had been awarded countless municipal contracts without competitive bidding. His developments received instant approval while others languished. And every time accusations of misconduct surfaced against the police department, a large donation from one of his shell companies would appear in campaign funds or police charity accounts. Elias pulled up Vale's photo, a silver-haired man with an expensive smile, the kind who collected influence like others collected art, the kind who could make a phone call and shut down a federal investigation. The pieces locked into place. Vale wasn't just connected to the corruption. He was its architect. His money bought protection for officers like Harlan, who in turn enforced Vale's interests through intimidation and violence. The police department wasn't just corrupt. It was essentially a private security force for Vale's empire. Elias began documenting everything, creating backups on secure servers. Each transaction, each connection, each abuse of power, carefully noted and cross-referenced. The sun was high overhead now, but he barely noticed, too focused on mapping the network that had seemed untouchable just hours ago. The front door opened and closed, Lydia coming home for lunch. She appeared in his office doorway, concern etched on her face. "Have you moved at all since I left?" Elias looked up from his screen where another suspicious payment had just revealed itself. "I found it, Lydia. The whole structure. Every piece of it." He gestured at his monitors. Vale's been running this town like a private fiefdom, using the police as his enforcers. The assault on Darius, the cover-up, Logan's beating. It's all part of the same system. Lydia studied the financial records displayed on his screens, her expression torn between fear of what this might cost their family and pride in her husband's refusal to back down. "The question is," she said softly, "what are you going to do with it?" Elias looked at the evidence he had gathered, proof of years of systematic corruption and abuse of power, all leading back to one man who thought himself untouchable. His jaw set with determination as he began organizing the files into categories: financial crimes, civil rights violations, abuse of authority, "I'm going to take it to the one person they can't buy or intimidate," he said. "Director Robert Callahan. He heads the FBI's Public Corruption Task Force. If anyone can move on this without political interference, it's him." Elias packed his laptop and specialized equipment into an unmarked backpack. He couldn't risk working from home anymore, not with the surveillance he had spotted. 2 different unmarked cars had circled their street since dawn. "I'll be at the business center downtown," he told Lydia, kissing her cheek. "Better security, and they can't watch me there without drawing attention." The Liberty Business Center occupied the 3rd floor of a glass office building. Elias had rented a private suite there years ago under a corporate shell company, standard procedure for sensitive cases. The space offered what he needed: secure internet, controlled access, and most importantly, privacy. He set up his equipment methodically. The air conditioning hummed steadily as his specialized recovery software began scanning for digital breadcrumbs. Years of experience had taught him that deleted files often left traces, ghost data that most people didn't know how to fully erase. "Come on," he muttered, eyes fixed on the screen as the program worked. "Show me what they tried to hide." After 3 hours, the first breakthrough came. The software had recovered partially deleted metadata from the police department's internal server, timestamps and file names matching the night of the diner incident. Elias leaned forward, fingers flying across the keyboard as he isolated the fragments. The metadata revealed multiple copies of the video file had been created, then deliberately wiped, but they had been sloppy, leaving digital fingerprints. Each copy had been accessed from different department computers, creating a trail of who had viewed it before its destruction. Elias documented everything, noting each timestamp and user ID. The pattern showed a clear timeline of the cover-up from the moment the footage entered their system to its eventual deletion. But he needed more. Metadata alone wouldn't be enough. He switched to his audio equipment next. During his years with the FBI, he had learned that corrupt officers often felt safe talking inside their patrol cars, believing the cabin was secure. They didn't know about the new generation of directional microphones that could pick up conversations through vehicle walls. Elias had borrowed one such device from the Bureau's technical division before taking leave. He had planted it near the police parking lot 2 days ago, disguised as part of a maintenance worker's equipment. Now he downloaded the recordings, running them through filtering software to clean up the audio. Most of it was useless: routine radio chatter, personal calls, music. But then he heard it. "Got that security footage dealt with." Elias recognized Officer Matthews, one of Harlan's closest allies in the department. "Better have," another voice replied. "Sergeant Cooper." "Can't have evidence floating around. Did you wipe the backup drives too?" "Yes, but Harlan wanted the original. Said he'd handle it personally." "Smart. Keep it close. Keep it safe. These FBI types, they don't give up easy." Elias's heart raced as he enhanced the audio, cleaning it further. The conversation continued, detailing how they had coordinated the theft and subsequent cover-up. It was exactly what he needed: direct confession of evidence tampering. But the mention of Harlan keeping the original drive, that was the real gold. If he could find it, he would have undeniable proof. Elias pulled up rental property databases, cross-referencing names and aliases commonly used by officers trying to hide assets. Hours passed as he searched, fueled by coffee and determination. Finally, a pattern emerged. A storage unit had been rented the day after the diner incident under the name Dale Richards, close enough to Dale Harlan to be memorable, but different enough to seem unrelated. The payment traced back to a prepaid card purchased with cash, but the rental application included a phone number that matched one of Harlan's burner phones. "Got you," Elias whispered. The storage facility was on the edge of town. Safe and sound storage. A place with minimal security and no cameras, perfect for hiding evidence. Elias drove there in an unmarked bureau car, parking where he could observe the entrance. He waited until early afternoon when the facility was quietest. The lock on Unit 217 was high quality, but no match for his specialized tools. Inside, cardboard boxes lined metal shelves, a convincing show of normal storage. But Elias knew better. He examined each box methodically until he found one that felt too heavy for its size. Inside, wrapped in bubble wrap and anti-static bags, was the diner's original security drive. His hands were steady as he photographed everything in place, documenting the chain of custody. He carefully packed the drive into a specialized evidence container designed to prevent tampering. Standard FBI issue for sensitive electronic evidence. Each piece now formed an unbreakable chain. The recovered metadata showing the cover-up, the audio of officers confessing to evidence tampering, and the original drive itself found in a storage unit rented under Harlan's alias. Back at the business center, Elias reviewed everything one final time. The case was solid. More than solid. It was airtight. The kind that federal prosecutors dreamed about. Clear evidence of civil rights violations, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy. He pulled out his phone, scrolling to a number he rarely used. Assistant Director Robert Callahan headed the FBI's Public Corruption Task Force. He was the highest-ranking official Elias knew who couldn't be bought or pressured. A man known for taking down entire corrupt systems regardless of political consequences. Elias boarded the morning train, his evidence container secured in a reinforced briefcase, handcuffed to his wrist. The rhythmic clatter of wheels on rails matched his heartbeat as urban sprawl gave way to rolling countryside. He had made this journey countless times during his career, but never with stakes this personal. The familiar weight of his FBI credentials rested in his jacket pocket. For 2 hours, he reviewed his presentation mentally, arranging and rearranging the sequence for maximum impact. Every piece had to flow naturally into the next, building an irrefutable case that even the most skeptical official couldn't ignore. Other passengers dozed or scrolled through phones, unaware that the unassuming man in the gray suit carried evidence that would shake an entire police department to its foundation. Elias thought of Darius at home, probably sitting at the kitchen table with Lydia, both of them waiting for news. He had left before dawn, kissing them goodbye with quiet determination. "Whatever happens," Lydia had whispered, holding him tight, "we're proud of you." The train arrived at Union Station in the morning. Elias navigated the morning crowd with practiced ease, his stride purposeful as he headed for the exit. Outside, the federal building rose against the sky, its limestone facade gleaming in the morning sun. Security recognized him immediately. He had worked dozens of cases here before, but today they treated him with extra formality, noting his visitor badge and evidence container with professional curiosity. The elevator carried him to the 12th floor, where the Public Corruption Task Force occupied an entire wing. Assistant Director Robert Callahan's office showcased 30 years of service through the photos and commendations on its walls. The man himself sat behind a broad desk, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, reading glasses perched on his nose as he reviewed a preliminary brief Elias had sent ahead. "Agent Hale," Callahan said, standing to shake his hand. "I've been expecting you." Elias placed his briefcase on the conference table and began his presentation. He started with the diner footage, letting the raw violence of Harlan's assault speak for itself. Callahan's jaw tightened as he watched Darius being struck. "The initial incident was just the beginning," Elias explained, moving to the financial records. "Here's where it gets interesting." He laid out the complex web of corruption, starting with the suspicious departmental expenses. Bank records showed regular payments to shell companies owned by the political donor who had blocked the DOJ intervention. Those same companies had made donations to the police pension fund and the re-election campaign of the judge who dismissed complaints against officers. The money trail is clear, Elias said, pointing to highlighted transactions. But it gets worse. He played the audio recordings next. The officer's casual discussion of evidence tampering echoed in the quiet office. Callahan leaned forward, his expression darkening as he listened to them conspire. "And here's the crown jewel," Elias said, carefully removing the original security drive from its container. "Found this in a storage unit rented under Harlan's alias. Chain of custody is fully documented, and the drive's metadata proves it's the original from the diner." Callahan examined each piece of evidence methodically, asking precise questions that Elias answered with confidence. 2 hours passed as they dissected every detail. Finally, Callahan removed his glasses and pinched the bridge of his nose. "This isn't just about one assault anymore, is it?" "No, sir," Elias replied. "It's about a systemic abuse of power that's terrorized an entire community. The assault on my son was just the match that lit the fuse." Callahan nodded slowly. "We've had suspicions about that department for years, but could never get solid evidence. You've handed me everything we need for a full RICO case." He reached for his phone. "I'm authorizing emergency intervention. We'll move at dawn tomorrow." The early morning fog clung to the ground as unmarked federal vehicles glided into position around the police station. Shift change would begin soon. Elias and Darius watched from their parked car across the street, far enough away to be safe, but close enough to witness everything. "Are you ready?" Elias asked softly. Darius nodded, his eyes fixed on the station's front doors where officers would soon arrive for the morning shift. Through his earpiece, Elias heard the tactical team leader's steady voice. "All units in position. Execute on my mark." The first officers began arriving for their shift, walking casually toward the building. Some carried coffee cups, others chatted with colleagues. None noticed the subtle movements in the shadows around them. "Execute." Black-clad figures emerged simultaneously from multiple directions. FBI agents in tactical gear rushed forward with military precision. Local officers froze, coffee cups dropping forgotten to the pavement. "FBI! Everyone on this ground, hands where we can see them." The shock on their faces was absolute. Officers who had believed themselves untouchable suddenly found themselves face down on the wet concrete, being zip-tied by federal agents. Through the station's glass doors, Elias could see the chaos erupting inside. Night shift officers scrambled to react, but found every exit covered by tactical teams. The FBI's operation was a masterwork of timing and coordination. Then came the moment Elias had waited for. Officer Victor Harlan pulled into the parking lot in his patrol car, right on schedule for his shift. He stepped out already sneering at what he assumed was some kind of protest until he saw the FBI tactical gear. "Victor Harlan!" an agent called out, weapon trained steadily. "Hands on your head. Do it now." Harlan's face contorted with disbelief. He started to reach for his service weapon, but found himself surrounded by 4 agents with rifles aimed at his chest. "Don't!" the lead agent warned. "You're already facing enough charges." The arrogance finally cracked. Harlan slowly raised his hands, his face ashen as agents moved in to cuff him. The metallic click of handcuffs echoed across the suddenly silent parking lot. "Victor Harlan, you're under arrest for civil rights violations, assault, conspiracy to obstruct justice, and participation in a criminal enterprise," the agent recited loud enough for gathering onlookers to hear. "You have the right to remain silent." Darius gripped Elias's arm. "They're really doing it." "Yes, they are," Elias said quietly. "Watch." Chief Raymond Driscoll arrived next, his usual composure shattering as he took in the scene. 2 agents intercepted him before he could reach the building. "Chief Driscoll, federal agents, you're being placed on immediate suspension pending criminal charges. Please surrender your weapon and badge." Driscoll's face reddened. "This is ridiculous. Do you know who I am?" "Yes, sir, we do. That's precisely why we're here." They efficiently disarmed him, removed his badge, and escorted him to a waiting vehicle. News vans began arriving, reporters spilling out with cameras rolling. The morning light strengthened, burning away the fog to reveal the full spectacle. Townspeople gathered on sidewalks, watching in stunned silence as more officers were led out in handcuffs. 2 senior sergeants known for enforcing Driscoll's corrupt policies were next, followed by the evidence room supervisor who had helped destroy complaints. Each arrest drew gasps from the growing crowd. "I see Mrs. Briggs," Darius said suddenly, pointing to where Eleanor stood among the onlookers, hands pressed to her mouth as she watched Harlan being loaded into a transport vehicle. Elias's phone buzzed. A message from Callahan. "Donors' accounts frozen. Judge suspended pending investigation. Full RICO indictments coming." The morning sun now illuminated the scene fully, symbolic of the light finally shining on years of darkness. Elias heard snippets of conversation from the crowd. "I can't believe it's really happening. All these years, and finally someone actually stood up to them." Harlan caught sight of Elias and Darius as agents guided him toward a waiting vehicle. His face twisted with impotent rage, but he could only watch as his world crumbled around him. The heavy door slammed shut on his final glare. More townspeople arrived by the minute. Elias recognized faces from his investigation, witnesses who had been too afraid to speak now standing proud. Shop owners who had suffered harassment now cheering openly. Retired teachers and coaches who had watched generations of kids endure abuse now wiping away tears of relief. Television reporters were going live now, their voices carrying across the parking lot. In a stunning development this morning, federal agents have swept into town, arresting multiple police officers in what appears to be a major corruption investigation. Darius turned to Elias, his eyes bright. "You really did it." "We did it," Elias corrected him. "Your courage started all of this." The crowd had noticed them now. Whispers spread as people recognized them, understanding flowing through the gathering like a wave. Eleanor Briggs broke away from the crowd, hurrying over to embrace them both. "Thank you," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "Thank you for not giving up." More community members approached, wanting to shake their hands or simply stand near them as they watched the proceedings. The fear that had gripped the town for so long was dissolving in the morning light. Reporters noticed the growing cluster of people around Elias and Darius. Camera crews turned their way, rushing over with microphones extended. Elias pulled Darius close, protective but proud, as the reporters called out questions about what it felt like to see justice finally served. In the days that followed, late afternoon sunlight bathed the courthouse lawn, where hundreds of chairs had been arranged in neat rows. The space overflowed with townspeople, many standing along the edges because every seat was taken. American flags fluttered in the gentle breeze, and a podium stood ready on the temporary stage. Elias, Lydia, and Darius sat in the front row alongside Eleanor Briggs, whose diner had become a symbol of the community's awakening. Behind them, elderly residents who had lived through decades of abuse dabbed at their eyes, finally seeing the change they had waited so long for. The federal task force chief approached the podium, adjusting the microphone. Camera crews from national networks jostled for position as he began to speak. Today marks a new chapter for this town. Following our investigation, we are announcing formal charges against former officer Victor Harlan for civil rights violations, assault, conspiracy, and participation in a criminal enterprise. A murmur rippled through the audience. The chief continued detailing the charges, each count representing another brick pulled from the wall of corruption that had seemed so impenetrable just weeks ago. The evidence gathered was extensive and damning. We discovered systematic abuse spanning years, destroyed complaint records, manufactured evidence, witness intimidation, and financial fraud. This case represents everything that damages trust between law enforcement and the communities they're sworn to protect. He paused, turning toward Elias. But today isn't just about what was wrong. It's about one man who stood up and showed us what integrity looks like. Special Agent Elias Hale could have handled this personally, could have sought private revenge. Instead, he chose justice. He meticulously built a case that exposed not just individual wrongdoing, but an entire system of corruption. Lydia squeezed Elias's hand. As the chief continued, the FBI is promoting Agent Hale to lead a new task force focused on civil rights violations and police corruption. He'll have his choice of assignment and expanded resources to continue this vital work. Applause erupted, lasting several minutes. When it finally quieted, a local council member approached the podium with a large ceremonial check. In recognition of the courage shown by Darius Hale, we are establishing the Darius Hale Resilient Scholarship Fund with an initial endowment of $50,000. This annual scholarship will support young people who demonstrate moral courage in the face of injustice. Darius blinked in surprise as people stood applauding. Several of his classmates in the audience whooped and cheered. The mayor stepped up next, his usual political polish replaced by genuine emotion. We failed our community for too long. We allowed fear and complacency to let corruption flourish. But today, we stand together to say never again. He turned to face the Hales directly. Elias, Lydia, Darius, you showed us what real strength looks like. Not the false strength of bullies with badges, but the true strength of standing up for what's right, no matter the cost. The task force chief returned to the podium for final remarks. We're implementing a complete restructuring of the police department, new leadership, new training, new accountability measures. But more importantly, we're seeing a community awakening to its own power. He gestured to the crowd. Look around. Not long ago, many of you were afraid to speak to your neighbors about what you'd witnessed. Today, you're standing together in the open, demanding better. That's what real change looks like. The mayor invited Elias, Lydia, and Darius to join him on stage. As they stood, the applause swelled again. Elias noticed faces in the crowd he recognized from his investigation, the witnesses who had been too scared to speak, now standing proud. The shop owners who had suffered harassment, now cheering openly. Eleanor Briggs joined them on stage, and the mayor presented her with a plaque commemorating her diner's new historic status. She spoke briefly, her voice thick with emotion. For years, we all just accepted that this was how things had to be. We told ourselves nothing would change. But all it took was one brave young man, one dedicated father, and one community finally willing to stand up and say, enough. Darius stepped to the microphone, something he had insisted on doing despite his natural shyness. His voice was clear and strong. Not long ago, I wasn't sure justice was real. But now I know it is, if we're brave enough to demand it and persistent enough to work for it. The elderly residents in the front rows nodded vigorously, some raising their hands in approval. They had waited longest for this day, and their joy was profound. Elias placed a hand on Darius's shoulder as the applause swelled again, the sound rolling across the courthouse lawn like thunder, the voice of justice finally breaking through years of enforced silence. If this story moved you, remember that justice isn't just something we hope for, it's something we fight for. Stay strong,